1991's Mega-lo-Mania, known as Tyrants Fight Through Time in North America, was Sensible Software's first truly ambitious title. Part real-time strategy, part god game, it was ahead of its time. Despite its already complex mechanics, it seems that the original concept for the game would have been even more ambitious.
Mega-lo-Mania was very, very ambitious when it started. So Mega-lo-Mania was like you were flying around in space, firing against other spaceships, 16 different planets, and you had all these towers, and you had like your mines and your factories and your towers to defend on the planets. But at the same time as doing that, you had to fly around a spaceship and not get hit. So the same game, but 20,000 years into the future, with a space firing game in it as well. So it was really hard. Imagine Mega-lo-Mania, but you start in 2500 AD and you go forward in space. Imagine that. So you've got technology, but it's fantasy technology that you're advancing. But also you could fly between the 16 zones. You'd fly between them, and there would be planets, and you'd have to fly to get from A to B to do your stuff. So yeah, really bloody hard, impossible. So we decided, because we hadn't advanced it very much, that on the flying part we would just kind of ditch it. And then about 6 months before the game was due to be finished, I noticed, and I never remember if it's Populous or Powermonger, but it was a picture of a caveman on a cover. So we saw that and we're like, it made me think, instead of having all this spaceship stuff, we could start with a caveman and go forward to like UFOs and spaceships as the final level, rather than just have endless different types of UFOs. Like, it would be more interesting, and people would connect more with a history line based on stuff they know, like Victorians and Elizabethans and Normans and what have you, you know. So that's what we did. So we just basically reversed the whole history line, and then made the graphics about that. So yeah, it meant redoing quite a lot of graphics, but not too much, because we'd been a little bit behind with some of the stuff. So we'd been working on the whole. Mega-lo-Mania is the first game in the world that had a tech tree. So we weren't really deliberately consciously making a tech tree, but we were working on this thing about mining and designing and upgrading and that kind of stuff. And we were doing it almost from a theoretical basis at the start. So one of the first things was like all the minerals and the names we called them and how they combine to make these different designs. So we just put the graphical world on top of it, of this kind of like, I say, the cavemen and then the Romans and the boiling oil down the medieval castles and stuff like that, and the Victorian biplanes, and then it was a lot more fun to get like a fighter jet flying over, I don't know, a guy with a bow and arrow, and he'd just kill him. Like, pff, it was funny. So you got this humour in it, and especially when you got the nuclear weapons, it was really funny, because then you just race to get a nuclear weapon and just utterly destroy the other guy, obliterate him. That was quite fun, you know. And of all our games, Mega-lo-Mania is the one which kind of it would have had really good legs. Unfortunately, it really suffered from Mirrorsoft falling apart at exactly the wrong time for the game. Our game was number one when Mirrorsoft fell apart, and we were published by Mirrorsoft, and the whole company just collapsed.
In addition to being the first game to feature a tech tree, Mega-lo-Mania was also arguably one of the first real-time strategy games. 1991 was really early in the genre's life. Westwood Studios' Dune 2, considered by many to be the catalyst for the genre's popularity, wasn't released until 1992, a year after Mega-lo-Mania.
In a way, you could argue the same with Cannon Fodder. It's slightly RTS. Like, we were moving in that direction. In the UK, those kind of games, the team that was probably heading the pack was Bullfrog with Populous and Powermonger. At Sensible, we kind of touched on different genres of game. So we kind of touched on that with Mega-lo-Mania, with the God game thing. And then we moved to Cannon Fodder, and we like this ability to like jump around.
MegaloMania was also the genesis of the signature miniature sprites that would go on to be used in Sensible Soccer and Cannon Fodder and became synonymous with Sensible Software's games. In fact, the sprites used in Sensible Soccer were repurposed from MegaloMania.
I think they had another artist to do all the title screens and the loading screens, but Jon done all the graphics in game. So, and that was obviously before Sensible Soccer came out. So those little tiny little characters I think that was like the beginning of it, of that look. I think from what I remember at the time and from hearing what Jon said since, it was really down to design of the game. So to get more information on the screen. You know, I mean, I think what's the resolution? 320 by 256 or something, the Amiga, which is fine back then. But when you've got lots of information, lots of sprites, the only way to do it is to scale them right down, so you've got a representation of a little man rather than actually a nice cartoon version of him. And I think that is purely the reason why that look kind of evolved and became the Sensi look.
You can find the full interviews with Jon and Stoo or watch the full developer spotlight on Sensible Software here.